All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's AMA. My name is Danielle Marie. Thank you so much, Manisal, for joining me tonight for this AMA. I have lots of questions and I'm going to pick your brain. But first, I just have a few quick announcements that I'm going to go through, some some new upcoming events, and a few things before we jump into our AMA. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. So everybody should be able to see that, and I'm going to hit the share button and everybody should be able to see my screen. So welcome to tonight's AMA. We partner and collaborate with a few other communities, Women in Digital Economy and Off-Chain. I primarily host them at the moment, but then our team may host other events, and we kind of collaborate with these communities to bring these AMAs to you. And tonight we have Metasal, who is the community manager for ANZ. Is it all of ANZ or is it just Australia? I can't.
It is for Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, I thought so. The community manager for down here, and we're going to jump in and ask a whole bunch of questions. Sorry, I just let somebody in and it mucks up so who am I? My name's Danielle Marie. For those of you who have not had a chance to meet me, whether it be through ATB or I know I have a lot of students on the call, I'm a Web3 educator and community builder. I founded Women in Digital Economy, which is a program to help more women basically enter in the space and kind of upskill and help them kind of figure out where they want to be in this industry. All Things Blockchain, which is the nonprofit association I founded alongside some other community members in 2020. Off-Chain Brisbane, which I'll explain a little bit about, is just another community, and I've taken the lead on being the founder, trying to get them that community off the ground here. And I'm also on the blockchain committee for the ACS, which is the Australian Computer Society. So I have my hands in a lot of different pies, but primarily all focused around education and community building. So if you are interested in studying blockchain or connecting with me to collaborate in some sort of way of community building, go ahead, scan that QR code and get in contact with me. As I said, I founded All Things Blockchain in November 2020, and the vision for it is for it to be a community built and organized by the community. And I still have a vision. We tried doing the whole POAP and NFT membership and all that sort of stuff back in late 2020 when the tech just really wasn't there. And we still have a vision of doing it, but it is a lot of work, and we're a nonprofit. And we actually operate off of all volunteers. Nobody gets paid to work together, and I couldn't do, even though I'm the founder and I lead and I drive this community, I couldn't do it without these volunteers. So I always like to give them an acknowledgement. We've got some of them on the call today, and these are the people that kind of work together to host. We host a series of different events, from online networking to big kind of events. We've done Pizza Day. We'll be doing Bitcoin Pizza Day, trivia nights, crypto bull market. So it really wouldn't happen without them. So I'm just letting a few more people in. So we are also operating by sponsors. So even though we're a nonprofit, we have operational costs, and then all of our in real life events, we give you free alcohol and food. So come along, and it's all because of these sponsors. So we're agnostic. We're not exclusive to any blockchain or any exchange or any, like, we even have 2 tax people. Okay, so we're open and we just collaborate with the community, and we just want to create a platform where everybody can come together, collaborate, and learn and educate, and then connect with each other, whether they have a right business fit. As I mentioned earlier, we collaborate with these partners. Now, off-chain is a global, so people that travel, like I'm actually going to Dubai next month, and I've connected a lot globally with the off-chain Dubai community, and they're all over the place. So go and connect with them. They're great for traveling. Our folks, we will be, when they launch their metaverse, we'll be hosting our ATV, these events that you're on tonight in the metaverse. We're just waiting for their GL version, but if you have the goggles, you can go in and have that kind of augmented reality experience as well. And then Women in Digital Economy, I host events. There is an event. I think I'm going to go about events and actually in a moment, but I hosted different types of events. They're more educational, focused, and kind of like workshops. So we do have the hybrid event coming up on April 3rd. So we have the Happening next month, and Daniel specializes in Happening. And he's going to talk about that impacts that's going to potentially have on the Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin, you know, and kind of his predictions of how the halving is going to affect Bitcoin. So join us. You can either join us online or in person. And then next month on April 8th, I have an AMA, what I'm doing with Amy Rose, who is the CEO of Blockchain Australia. And we'll be talking about kind of what is the digital economy as a whole, like a little bit kind of out of scope of just what's blockchain, but what does that look like to build a career or a business kind of in this, you know, digital economy, and what kind of falls underneath that. And I forgot to put the slide in this Wednesday in Brisbane. It's in person only. It's not online. So it's only for the people that are in Brisbane. I'm doing a very kind of entry level of Web3 for business and kind of making sure that you understand. But if you are not in Brisbane and you want to attend events outside of just ATB events, go to the Blockchain Australia website, because all of the meetups across, whether you're in Sydney or if you're in Melbourne or Perth, all of the events are on there. So it's a really good resource and a tool, whether it be online or in person. So I highly recommend that if you're trying to tap in, learn more, and connect with your community and build, especially if you're in a regional area or other parts, it's a great resource. So that's it for me. We're going to get into the exciting part now, but upcoming events. But you can, if you want to connect with us on socials or engage with us more, especially if you're not local, we would love that. Now let's jump into the main show. And let me pick your brain. So first off, I want to hear, before we jump in talking all things Solana, I want to hear what was your journey to get before you got. So I kind of want the, you know, how you got into crypto, and then I want how did you become, you know, solely backing Solana Maxi, if you want to call it. Like, can you tell us that a little bit of that journey of going from just what got you in the door to where you are now?
No worries. Thank you for having me. So do you want the short version or the long version?
Well, like the longer version, but just don't waffle on.
No worries. All right. So it's a waffle free then. All right, guys. So into Solana, I've been 3 years, right? After the lockdown that everyone enjoyed, I mean, hated in Melbourne, I flew over to Miami to meet the founders of Solana, because I heard that it was the next big thing, right? The why did I get into Solana or the blockchain? And that starts with my background in computer hardware. So I used to run a computer hardware business, then moved into servers, and then networking, and then virtualization. And I understood that you know, Bitcoin was coming out, and I started doing a little bit of mining.
When was
But I
that?
think, sorry.
When is that? Because you kind of started from where you're working backwards. So, like, how long ago was
Yeah.
that? Because you said 3 years for Solana.
Yeah. So mining probably 8, 9 years ago, right?
Okay, so a while.
Yeah, yeah. But I stopped that because I didn't see the uses for it, right? I didn't understand like the monetary aspect of it. I understood the technology behind it, being a hardware guy, not a finance guy. So I left it, you know, went into life happens. So getting married, having kids,
Mm-hmm.
running a whole Web2 business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
And
that's
then
what
you
I did.
circled back.
Yeah, yeah. Came back into Web3 and the internet stuff about 3 years ago.
Okay, and how long was the gap?
So I was, well, 6 years. Yeah.
Wow, 6 years. So you got in it, did some mining. Are you one of those stories, before we talk about Solana, are you one of those like shoulda, coulda, woulda with Bitcoin back in like 8, 9 years ago? No?
No, no, because like if you don't know the value, you don't know the value, right?
Mm,
So even
that's
now, right, people talk about the price of Solana and they're like, oh, I should have got more when it was $8, or I should have got more. But you don't know what you don't know, right? Like if I asked you or anyone in the crowd today, is what is it, $205? Is that cheap or is that expensive? What do you
Well,
think they're
I
going to say?
think for me to be able to fully answer that question, it comes down to purely really being able to understand the tokenomics of each project and its potential and the kind of mechanisms behind it, and the
Mm.
long-term roadmap and like all of that. So I don't think you can value, or I don't think you can give a response to if it's cheap or expensive until you actually fully understand the project on that
Exactly.
level.
Exactly right. So I think the same thing applies to Bitcoin. If you get in 9 years ago, or if you get into Solana today, it's not late if you understand what the technology can do, right? So
Yeah. And we're going to unpack a little bit of that, I guess, right? So we're
yes,
going to get into. So, well, that's good. Well, thank you for sharing. So you got in, you're more of a hardware kind of guy. So are you a developer? Because why don't you tell us before we jump into the questions about Solana, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role and what you do in the ecosystem? Because you're the community manager, but you
yeah,
probably would have some skill sets in the more of the techie side of things if you kind of came
yeah,
from the hardware side.
yeah. Thank you. So I have a couple of hats that I put on, right? So um, I'm a dev with hat because I do deliver projects in the background for different projects around. So I'm a front end developer. So having a computer business, having a training business, having anything to do with the real world, I've developed websites and apps that you may or may not know around the world. Um, so from designing it, from coding it, to writing the APIs and the scripts, right? So I've been involved in that. So that's what my
Mhm.
day job used to be. Um, my other hat that I have on is that as a volunteer again, so Solana ANZ is what we call ourselves. There's a group of 5 of us that run Solana ANZ, right? And it's
Okay.
growing. So what we do is as volunteers, we manage the community on Telegram, on a website, on Twitter, and in real life events. And we partner with either businesses that are Web3 or want to be Web3 or Super Team. And Super Team is a different project altogether. It's more like a DAO. And I'm not sure if this audience would know what a DAO is, but think of it as in Australian terms, a cooperative society, right? If it was a legal entity that is for members by members, but it gets
Mhm.
funds from either members or from other entities.
Yeah.
That's my secondary hat.
2 hats. I know about wearing many hats because I wear many hats. And then, but I also say to people, I don't know about for you, and I'm just letting a few people in here. Um, I wear a few different
Priscilla?
hats, but they they all kind of, I always say to people, they kind of all intertwine for me, and I kind of
Mm,
leverage the same things that I like for what I'm doing with education. I can bring in and vice versa, and so I find it easy. But yours kind of seem a little bit different, but also kind of the same, the community, and the
mm,
front end. Well, let's move into some questions that I have for Solana, but I also just want to plant the seed for everybody that's in the audience. This is really, a community event. So I get kickstarted by asking some questions, but then we do open up to questions, and I encourage people to put on their cameras and be interactive. You don't have to. If you just want to put it in the chat, you can do that. We'll still answer your question, but also networking and growing a community of your own is so important if you're wanting to not only learn about this space, but also maybe build a career or get a job. And sometimes we're in remote spaces, so we have to attend events online, or when there was COVID, that's basically all we had. However, I was very lucky when I launched all things blockchain. We didn't really have very much COVID here. Out of the entire COVID period, I only had to move 2 events. I hosted events the entire way through. I basically built my community in the bear market and then leading into the bull. So we were quite lucky. But anyways, I stopped rambling on. Please turn on your cameras and ask questions. But the big first thing I want to talk about is, you talk about the tech, and you say, if you understand the value and what the tech can do, then you were basically saying you would think $200 is, if, like, for example, if you knew Bitcoin and you were understood that Bitcoin was going to be where it is today, you wouldn't be mad if you bought it at 20,000, right? Because it's going there, but it's because you don't know and what you don't know. And so what is it about the tech that is so amazing? Because it does have a little bit of a bad rap from the outages, right? And this is kind of where I want you to, because obviously some people just say it has outages, it's a shit blockchain, it's not decentralized, it's not going to work, etc. So, and I'm sure you've heard this over and over again. So I guess by answering kind of your response to that, to maybe kind of explaining the tech and behind it and how that is going to mature from where it is now, because apparently it's still classified as being in beta, right? And for those of you that don't know the differences between alpha and beta, you know, they basically haven't graduated to full-fledged. So if you can maybe kind of give us a little bit of background on that.
Yeah. So without getting too technical, because we can, think of it like a database. Like whenever we do meetups, we did one in Sydney last October. We started it with saying, do you think that Solana is a database, right? And a database basically stores data, and it stores it for everyone around the world. And if you can make a database that's so fast that syncs every 400 milliseconds, which is 2.5 times a second at 5,000, or what is it now, 300 transactions per second, that's damn fast, right? So that's the main thing. And if it's so cheap and if it's so fast, why wouldn't everyone need it? Because every website in the world needs it. Every transaction we need to do to interact needs transactions. So why wouldn't you use something that's fast and efficient and scalable, right? So we understand Bitcoin is a storage of value, right? So people would consider that equivalent to gold, right? But when people first found gold, I don't think people maybe understood, right, that gold was limited on the earth, right? If you look at it that way. So
Mm.
if you understand that it's limited and you've convinced the world, right, that there's only going to be 21 million of them, right, then you know that it's limited supply, which means the price will go up if you can convince people that it's worth holding. So you can just ask Michael Saylor, right?
Well,
In
I think
regards,
we're doing, or whoever, not we, but just because I'm a part of the community, I think that they're doing a good job of convincing the world that it should be our new
yeah,
value.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there was a time, right? If you look at the history of currencies, that people did salt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Did
Yeah.
they did tulips, right? There's been a time where people have done NFTs, right? Right? That's still a currency, right? Now, Solana, on the other hand, if you forget about the token side of it, if you forget about the dollar cost value of it, just think about the fact that you can store things permanently, right? And keep a ledger, and it's faster and it's cheaper than anything else. Why else would you need any other database, right?
No, well, of course, but the tech needs to be there to be able to do that or handle that.
Yeah.
And at the moment, the blockchain trilemma, which, and it's hard to vary on the level of people on the call and where their level of kind of experience is. But for those of you that are, kind of relatively new to the industry, it's kind of like every blockchain has to, kind of sacrifice something, and whether that's scalability or security or speed, right? So, what is going to basically, to kind of maybe rephrase my question, what is the tech, like, why do we keep having outages now, and why is that not going to be a problem in the future? Because if you guys keep having outages, you're going to stay in beta and never graduate. So I guess maybe that's more of the answer I was looking for.
Yeah, of course. So I do notice that someone does have the camera on. Maybe they've got a question. So we won't.
Okay.
Yeah, but so from my perspective, the outages happen because of human error, right? So judgment calls are made by people that are making decisions that didn't go the way that they probably planned, right? Like again, what I compare to is it's software and it's hardware and it's man or human made. It's not God. It's not like the sun must come out. It's not like the moon has to, revolve. It's basically humans that have made this, and errors were made in judgment, right? And the question I ask people that are maxis of any chain is that when Bitcoin went down, no one was there to make noise, right? When ETH goes down, no one was there to write about it on Cointelegraph, right? The thing with Solana is that, unfortunately, as a brand or as a blockchain, everyone was watching and everyone was on the hype train when it went live. And people were using it. Like even today, the price isn't really indicative of the performance of it right now. Because it can do more volume and transactions than every other blockchain combined today, right? There's still a backlog, right? So Solana developers on LinkedIn and on Twitter are fighting the FUD, not in a bad way, but in a way to just say, look, there's congestion there. And the way that they've explained it today, like Rex from Solana Foundation, or sorry, from Anza, from Solana Labs, ex Solana Labs, has explained that it's like playing Hungry Hungry Hippo. It's almost randomness. Doesn't matter how fast you click the buttons. Doesn't matter how much priority fees you set. It's kind of random who gets there first, right? But imagine that at the scale of 5,000 or 1,000 transactions a second, right?
So I'm just gonna let somebody in. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that it's important for people to understand that there's also different levels of decentralization. And when you think about Bitcoin, when it very first came, it wasn't fully decentralized. And not that I want to go down too much of this rabbit hole, and I'm gonna lean into the to see if somebody has a question in the audience. But
Yeah, maybe raise their hand if there is a question, because I know the
yeah.
camera's on, but if you've got a question, I'd love to hear it.
But it takes a while to get to that point of true decentralization, and depending on the governance model and and how that all works. So from what I've heard is that, and it's the same with a lot of other chains, you know, Hedera, for example, is very centralized at the moment, but they're working towards a decentralized model. So I think that it's just important for people to understand and learn, and when the tech is in earlier stages. So, but we won't go too technical because I don't want to, you know, for some of the people that are new on the call, but I think that it's important for you. It took me a long time to really understand validating nodes. And we might circle back to it in a moment, but what's the difference between a validating node and a client node? And the, you know, there's so many kind of differences. And not that we're going to, you know, dive deep unless people really want to know that, then go ahead and put that question in the chat. But it is something that takes time to learn unless you kind of come from like a technical background. But my next question is going to kind of lead into there, and feel free as we're going along to, but everyone seems a bit quiet. Oh, we have a question. Let me read it. What Solana you think has done differently that is so recognized, in the community?
What I think what they're saying is, what do you think Solana did differently that made it get recognized in the community? So you can look at it either way, either positively or negatively, right? So the positive thing is, you know, like they've been able to represent the flaws in it, right? Like a lot of the things Bitcoin has said has been like, yeah, this is perfect, right? Like Satoshi solved a problem, right? And this is the right answer, but it's not doxed. They've gone under hiding, or whatever the case may be, right? With Solana, it's a technology. Anatoly, one of the founders, had uh, 2 beers and a coffee, thought of an idea, and goes, "Yep, this is what we're going to implement, and this is how I think it's going to work out." His background in Qualcomm was enough for him to understand that, yes, we have limited compute power, we have limited RAM. How do we do something based over time that can sync globally? So another way to describe Solana is a global state machine, which is solving a problem that a lot of other databases or businesses or blockchains in the world have had, right? One of the early quotes that Solana used to say was, it's, what was it, NASDAQ at the speed of light, right? Or NASDAQ on the blockchain, right? That's what Anatoly is trying to solve for, along with Raj, right? So what they've done differently is they've looked at what the problems in the world is, that businesses face or that retailers face, and work that into what Bitcoin also allows: permissionless, decentralization, banking the people around the world that are unbanked, right?
Hmm. Yeah. And so taking the conversation into more of the development side of things,
Yep.
we know that there's many different variables to the success of a blockchain. And sometimes you can really have the best kind of tech, maybe, right? But there'll be some other variables, such as maybe not being able to get a developer community, or even having a good kind of marketing or good branding, or whatever it may be. What is it like? Because I always get students asking me, because I don't teach the technical side of things, but like, what's the experience or what's the demand
Yeah.
for developers on Solana? Because I've always, kind of worked under the impression that there's all these different languages, and I think Willow put in there Rust. Rust, I
Yes.
know is not specific to Solana, and I'm not technical at all, but like, if you can just kind of give a bit of an experience, like if somebody goes and becomes a Solana developer, is it pretty easy for them to get work in there because then they're hot demand? Is that a hard language to learn? Yeah, just give us a bit of background on that.
Yeah, so I'll do a quick Solana Dev 101, right? So it's basically, there's a couple of sides to it. So if you want to be a developer in Solana, what you need to do is understand front end, which is any person that is a web developer will understand HTML, right? CSS and JavaScript or React, right? That's the front
Mm,
end that talks to the back end. So if it was a server on AWS or Google, that would be the back end. But in this
mhm,
case, we're talking about the back end being Solana, right? So how do you
mm,
talk to Solana? So the way you talk to it is by using the SDK, right? So that's known as the Solana Web3.js, right? So we
mhm,
can provide some of these resources later. But the Solana Web3.js means that you can interact with the blockchain without actually knowing any Solana language, which is Rust, right? Or any backend language. You can actually interact by creating transactions and instructions, right?
mm,
If you do want to do the backend stuff, then what you need to do is learn Rust, right? There are options out there that you can write programs in Solana. So people that are coming across from ETH would know Solidity, right? Or
mhm,
they would know smart contracts. Solana calls those programs, right? So in the olden days, like when I was working on Commodore 64s, that's revealing my age a little bit, right? But we used to have programs before apps came out. So Solana actually uses the same terminology. You create a program, and the program only has a limited amount of compute that it can use, right? And that's the reason why we use Rust in the backend. I'm not a backend developer, but if you paid me enough, I could write you an app for it, right? A program for you and deploy it for you as well. Now, those applications or programs in the backend are the ones that interact with the chain, right? Which
mm,
stores everything in accounts, right? So Solana is all about having programs that keep accounts up to date, right?
mm.
You have transactions, you have instructions, and you have accounts that are maintained. And that's why in 400 milliseconds, you can execute a transaction and it's up to date across the world, right?
Wow.
So the way you would start is learn the front end with Web3.js.
Mm-hmm.
Google Solana Cookbook. That'll give you a really good starter. And if you want to go straight into the back end, you can't go past Sol PG, which stands for Solana Playground. If you search that, that'll give you the best environment that actually lets you produce a program in mainnet, or you can even do it in DevNet in just a couple of hours. If you know a little bit of Rust, or you know Solidity,
And say if
or
you don't know and you want to learn, is there a lot of opportunity at the end of learning?
yeah, yeah. So look, the way you're going to find a job is either lying, so you have to fake it till you make it, right? That's the truth. I'll be
Not a lot
honest.
of integrity in that one. Okay, what's the other option?
Yeah. So if you really want to be successful, you actually have to prove yourself, right? So the way you prove yourself is, again, Super Team, right? In the background there. So Super Team funds events, right? Like the one we did in Brisbane last month, the one we did in Melbourne, the one we did in Auckland, right? The reason why they fund it is because they're looking for talent, right? They're going to give you a beer or some food or a hat, right? But what they're looking for is people that have talent and the skills or the desire, right? So what you want to do is go to superteam.fun, and there's a tab there called Earn, and there's if you've heard of something called Fiverr or those websites that you get paid to do work, right? And then once you complete the work, then you get paid. Earn.superteam.fun has exactly that. They have bounties, and you prove your skills by doing the job on a contract or on a piece, not by the hour, right? So the advantage there is that you meet someone that will guide you because they want you to succeed, and you prove yourself with your skills. If you're looking for a job in Australia, I post about this every month on my Twitter, and sometimes I don't do it on LinkedIn, but on my Twitter, I say that there's no Solana jobs in Australia because we're still early, right? Recruiters hit me up because I've got Solana in my on my LinkedIn profile, right? But there's no real jobs here at the moment unless they already have contracts. But anyone with a contract in Solana will automatically go to Dubai, right? Or they'll go to Singapore. So unfortunately, there's not many jobs here, but there can be if you want to be a founder and you want to start working with other people that don't want to leave the country. And yeah, that's how you
With
can do
dev
it.
work, you think you would be able to do dev work remotely?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you can get the skills and display them, if you have the skills and display them, that's
Mm,
how it, that's how
okay,
it works. So like recruiters don't really test your skill. You just have to convince the founder or the CTO, right? In a
yeah.
corporate job. Web3 is really different because what you want to be able to do is prove your skill by doing it. You can't really fake it, right? But if you want to stay in Web2, yeah, just lie to a recruiter. But if you want to get a job in Web3, you own your own reputation, right? I come here, I talk, someone might reach out to me.
So
Every
to
mm,
kind of sum it up on the dev before we kind of move on, I've got a question in the audience, but for anybody that is interested, in mind my ignorance, GitHub though is for all devs where they can show their work and it doesn't matter in what language, or like it could be in Ethereum, it could be in Solana, it could be in Bitcoin, correct? So if that would be a
yeah,
place for them to start demonstrating also. Like, yes, I get what you're saying, go and prove yourself to the Solanas, but just in general, practicing your dev skills, front end, back end. The GitHub
yeah,
is, from what I heard, is kind of like your resume as a developer, kind of like how your LinkedIn, is kind of also, your modern day resume.
yeah, pretty much. Like we're building a couple of websites at the moment for the for Solana ANZ and for the DAO that we're setting up. So you could reach out to me and say, hey, listen, I'm a front end developer. I'd like to volunteer and show my skills here, right? We can put a bounty up on superteam.fun saying, yep, here's $100. Let's see what you can do, right? And maybe that'll land you more work because you got paid, right, to do the work, to
Mhm.
show off your skill. And if someone else around the world is looking for a front end developer, you've just proven your skill by working with someone who's already integrated in the system.
Cool. I've got a couple questions in the audience, but I am going to take the person who has a camera on and their hand up because they
Yes.
they have their camera on. So we'll go over to
Eloise.
Hi, Eloise.
Eloise, that's my surname. Hey, nice to meet you all. Thanks for taking my question. Just regarding the spaces available, platforms available like Super Team and GitHub for developers. I guess I'm not a techie, but I work in Web 2 as
Yeah.
project management and product management. I guess, is there something like that to be able to get involved in small little projects as well
Yeah.
that might need some that I guess from idea to implementation and governance across that?
Yeah. So Super Team is not just dev focused, right? What they're looking for is talent. So thank you for the question. So Super Team is all about finding people who want to work in Web3, right? Who can put their hand up and say, yep, I'm willing to take on this bounty, right? So I'm not sure where you are based. If you're not in Melbourne and you're not in Brisbane, you're not in Sydney, and you're not in Auckland, great. I'll give you a project to do one of the other states, right? Next month to do one of the meetups, right? So if you can get 20 people in a room, Super Team will pay for it, food, drinks, banner, and some merch to give away, right? To get people that are interested in Solana together.
Okay. Melbourne.
Oh, thank you. You can always
Nice.
explore, start small, but yes, I find I teach more of the project management consultant, strategic business planning. So I think the answer to your question in general is yes, that there is a demand, but once again, you have to be involved. You have to get in, you have to kind of prove yourself. You have to get to meet them. All right, I'm going to go over a couple of questions in the audience. This one's from Martin. Is Solana going to handle the massive proliferation of meme coins being launched on Solana? Could these meme coins soil the reputation of Solana?
Yeah. So look,
100%
this is a
clear
really,
on that question? Yeah.
yeah, I love this question. Thank you for asking, Martin. So I went for a run earlier, and I knew that this question was going to pop up, right? Because every person that knows the internet or the blockchain is talking about it, from a poor person to a billionaire, right? Like Elon Musk is talking about meme
Meme
tokens, right?
coin. Yeah.
So the answer from my perspective is that it's about throwing stuff at the wall to see if it sticks, right? The reason why Solana was successful previously and it's still around today for people that were watching, not the price, but the technology, right, is because we have this fundamental thesis is that we need to have technology that people can do stuff with, right? So something called token is what a program is, right? So there's a program on the blockchain called a token, and that's how you create meme tokens, right? So you can create a token in 5 lines of code and throw it out there in the world, and I can create $Martin before the end of today, right? And we can add some liquidity. But what's so significant about it? So what came out in the last 2 months is something called Token 22, which is the new version of the token program. And what this program allows you to do is something that's even more smarter. So some people might call it Token version 2, Token 2.0. The official name is Token Extensions. That lets you do stuff that you couldn't do previously, that banks have asked for around the world, that enterprises have asked for. People like Grab Singapore, which is the Uber in Singapore, went live with Solana USDC on their platform today. That was tweeted out by some of the super team members. So the point I'm making here is that these meme coins isn't a way for you to test with real users, right? Imagine you make a program and no one uses it. Oh, you show it to your wife, you show it to your kids, you show it to your mates. That's like 5 people, man. Like that's not good enough. Now, for under $100, or maybe $200 now, you can actually throw it out there, test it, and see what happens. This is a true story. I worked with Carlos today, who is from Super Team UK. He had a bug on his website. He won the last hackathon. I met him in Amsterdam, and I reached out to him and said, "Hey, mate, I'm trying to do a lending on your platform on Juicify today. It didn't work." I gave him a screenshot. He goes, "Oh, no worries. Let me fix it now." 5 minutes later, he's fixed it. A real world tester in the wild has given him feedback. He's fixed the problem in 5 minutes, right? That's what meme coins allow you to do. You can look at edge cases. You can look at all the different cases that may happen, which might take a Web 2 business months to find out. I've worked in Web 2. We used to have websites with forms that bloody didn't work for a week, right? And no one complained about it, right? But in Web 3, you will have a user who's engaged 24/7 to give you an answer. Not just one person, but around the clock, right? That's the advantage of these meme tokens. Fast iteration, fast user feedback, live.
Okay, well, we've got a couple more questions. Sorry, it might sound like a weird question. Is that crypto hype comes every 2 to 4 years with catalyst events? So for one to take it a serious career, how one person might make their way? Actually, that's a very valid question.
That is such a smart question. Yeah.
Very, very, very sensible. But I just want to tack on to that question with
Sure.
the 2 to 4 years and catalyst, because there was a catalyst event that happened 2 years ago that very much impacted the Solana ecosystem, FTX, right? But
Yes.
I want to point out that there was this catalyst, and that Solana just kept building throughout that time, but then also the impact that it had on the Solana ecosystem, if you can kind of tie in that response with that person. But then, yeah, I
Yes.
guess it is a bit scary if you go and shift over careers and you're all in on the Solana, and then it just kind of, it ends up being like Luna, it's just not here anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, these cycles, everyone's talking about it. That's actually the key word of the day, right? My personal perspective on this is that this happens because big businesses take time to roll out things, right? So a lot of big businesses have spent time, energy, getting themselves ready to maybe implement something, right? So Solana has been lucky in the sense that token extensions is ready. The network is a lot more stable. Again, it's not stable enough for 1 billion users, right? Today, it's stable enough for 50 million, maybe 100 million users, right? It's not ready at the capacity that, let's say, Twitter, Facebook is, right, to transact. But it's getting there. There's a technology, or there's a validator client. If you want to know what that is, we can learn about that later. But
Are you
that
talking about Fire Dancer?
yeah. So Fire Dancer is going to be coming out, which is going to probably 5x, if not 10x, the capacity that a Solana validator can handle. The new Solana mobile phone that comes out in 12 to 18 months will possibly have a validator built into it. That means there'll be 100,000
A
plus.
third client, you mean?
Sorry?
You mean a third client? Because we're not going to
Yeah.
go into the technical of it because I'm mindful of time. But for the audience that do want to go and look at Fire Dancer, because it's a third client, and it is quite important to try to understand the difference between, just a node that you're participating in validating transactions to, and running that software that's from that client node, to understanding and the differences between all of that. And it is a lot more technical. So we're not going to go deep down that rabbit hole. And I'm going to hand it over to Willow, who has got his camera and his microphone on and his hand up.
Yeah, Sal, I was just interested in how you see Solana's future with AI. How is what is anything you're excited about happening in that space for the future in AI? And where do you see it going?
Yeah, sure. So we built an app for Breakpoint last year in October. We built Hey Tolly, which was an AI bot that used to sound and speak in Anatoly, the founder's voice, right? Now, that was just a fun thing for the culture, but I'm not a AI guy, but I know that there's about 5 different AI projects that have launched tokens on the Solana blockchain that have moved over, right? There was one, I think today, I learned about it and tweeted about, called Gaming.gg, right? It's all about using AI and gaming together. One of the founders that I met at a meetup in Melbourne last month, who followed me all the way to Dubai, that I was at the founder's villa that you can see in the background. He's also launching a DeFi product using AI and market predictions, right? That is also exciting, that I'd love to talk about in the future once he launches. But it's not something that I'm deeply involved with. But I could give you names, right? Like Nusana is live now, but it's not something that's my expertise that I could go deep into. But it looks pretty good that people are using Solana and AI to build projects, right?
And I'm sure that all blockchains, not just Solana, the AI will have creativity for all of them. And I guess it just kind of goes to the functionality or the features of that blockchain and how it'll play. I'm quite curious to watch it all unfold. We've got a couple more questions in the audience online. So Martin has another one saying, what problem essentially is Solana trying to solve, particularly ANZ, by applying Solana? So what is that main problem?
So I don't understand that one.
I tried to cut it down. It says, what is the particular in ANZ applying Solana to? So I don't know if I'm reading the question wrong. What problems are they hoping to
Ah,
solve with Solana? I'm
yeah,
intrigued if
yeah,
banks can be so forward thinking.
yeah. Okay, so this is a misconception, I think. People thinking Solana ANZ is the ANZ Bank. So I'm hoping it's that they're referring to.
Oh, Australia, New Zealand, just to clarify, anybody on the call, not ANZ Bank. That is,
Yeah,
I could see how that could happen. People could get that mixed up for sure.
yeah. We'll have to rebrand to Solana Down Under, right?
Oh, he did think it was the bank. Yes.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. So it's not the bank. So there are banks that have got stable coins, right? ANZ has a
And
stable.
isn't that what you said? Was it in Singapore that you said that we're taking the stable coins? What was the company?
Oh, so this is Grab. So think of
Grab.
Uber, the Singapore version of
And they
Uber.
started taking stable coins on Solana.
Correct. So you can pay with your USDC
Yeah,
to catch a Grab Uber today, starting today in Singapore.
in Singapore. Very cool. I think that's super cool.
Yeah. But yeah, in Australia, Navati has got the AUDD digital Solana,
Yeah.
stable coin.
Yeah, I know Savati and Effie. Yep.
Yep. So that's coming out. We partnered with the Australian National NFT Gallery to do the birthday party last week, well, on Saturday, and they've also got a stable coin that is not too far away. So
An Australian one.
yeah, Australian one. So check out CobPay
Two
as
on
well.
Solana, or are they just going to be multi-chain?
That one they said Solana. Don't quote me on that, but I mean I go there as
Sounds
Solana.
like a whole nother podcast to talk about that, or a
Yeah.
podcast interview, AMA, and I am mindful of time, but I'm sure we could just kind of go down a whole bunch of different rabbit holes.
Yeah, I can see
But
Vishal has got his camera open if they've got a question.
they didn't put their hand up, so I wasn't
Um,
sure.
Yeah.
yeah, like I didn't have a question, but like maybe I was just typing that, like because like here, this is a great platform, right, to meet like-minded people. So last time, like, so I will introduce myself. So I'm a software engineer, and then I'm a co-founder of a company called Make It Labs. So recently, like we were doing like, normal stuff, but then I met one like, blockchain startup called OpenMesh in Sydney. So right now, like, I'm working with them, like try to get their stuff, like, marketing, community. That's
Oh,
Oh, lost him.
I think we just lost him, just like that, just went boom.
He-
Okay,
we got-
he continues his introduction when he comes back. I'm
It was
gonna,
faster than a Solana transaction. Jeez.
yeah. To answer Stefan's question, is crypto hype and the cycle every 4 years related to the halvening? Half of your answer, from my opinion, and then maybe I'll let Sal give his as well, is yes, there's an element to it because Bitcoin, does have the halving every 4 years. But there's more variables that play into it, with other financial markets and ecosystems. And that's just kind of my opinion. So there is a historical pattern. If you look at the charts and you look over the history over the last 4 years, and it's kind of like almost kind of predictable a little bit with when we know now, obviously the first time we've hit all-time highs before, but it, from the people that I listen to, and I'm definitely no expert, and I'm definitely interested to get your opinion, is that there's other cycles and they all kind of run together, the different financial markets and presidential elections and, all of these things. And Rishiv is coming back in, but what's your response to that question?
yeah, I'm so
I
sorry.
said-
Like,
Yeah, so I answered half of it before, right? So big businesses, governments, regulation takes time, right? So for example, the Bitcoin ETF took a while, right? Like the price was pretty much factored in, right? So people had already priced it in. So from a technology point of view, it's ready to go, but the public perception or people being allowed to buy. So these ETFs can't always buy when they want to because of regulations, right? They can't buy because of their own governance practice, right? My brother, for example, he's told me, you know, as a CFO, that they can't buy stuff until a particular date. And at the same time, they can't sell after a certain price, or they automatically have to sell after a certain price. So can you imagine how hard their job is, saying, oh, you know what, we have to take profits at 20%, but the damn thing pumped by 100, they had to sell it, so they can't make all the profits that they could have potentially, because those systems are in a way that don't work in the current environment, right? Can you imagine like Jason and David tokens that launched yesterday as shitcoins? Can you imagine if that was all legit? Because these are billionaires. They've got their career, their, you know, legalities under control. That could have been a game that they played out weeks ago. How do we know? We don't know these things, right? But they're telling us not to buy them. But at the same time, them talking about it is encouraging people to experiment and go buy, sell, right?
Mm-hmm. Welcome back. Is it, how do I pronounce your name properly? Is it
Rishabh. Yeah, it's Rishabh.
Rishabh.
Yeah.
Rishabh.
Yeah, so basically, like, I mean, I just wanted to ask that, you know, like how we got this opportunity to meet like-minded people, like, you know, like discuss this opportunity. So I'm from Sydney, Australia. So,
Yep.
so that's why, like, I wanted to know, like, you know, if there is like you guys are thinking about like some events or whatever, or if you guys are planning something like that to meet in person or get an opportunity to
Yeah,
meet like industry legends like you guys. You know, like it really inspires us, like as a developer, or like, you know, to
yeah.
try to be part of the ecosystem and gain some knowledge.
You're our target audience, right? So Super
Yep.
Team and Solana ANZ want people like yourself who are either founders
Yep.
or builders or students, or someone who wants to learn more about Solana and can do something for Solana. Because people say, oh, what can Solana do for me? You buy the damn thing and the price goes up or goes down and you cry or you get happy, right? But the reality is, it's what can you do for Solana? Can you build an app? Can you build a project? Let's meet up. So 4th of April, just go to solanaanz.org and you'll be able to sign up to the events calendar, and everyone gets invited, collect the free NFT, and you'll just get invited, right? Like Solana transactions are so cheap. We give you a free NFT at the event, which gives you airdrops for the rest of the year, right? So that's subscribe. Solanaanz.org is where you go.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Do you want to,
Really
thank you for turning on camera. Do you want to put that in the chat while we jump over to Willow, who I believe has another question?
Yep.
If he still has. I think
Who
you're
can't
on,
hear you, mate?
you're on mute.
Yeah.
Oops. So I'm just going to drop the AI component out of my last question. And what are you most excited about with Solana, and what's the project you're really watching in for the future? That's something that's really having to think about how to showcase Solana's capabilities.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, you got the hairs on the back of my neck standing up, right? Like I have 4 monitors in front of me because there's so much stuff I have to absorb, right? I do this 60 hours a week, right? Solana is my life, 60 hours a week. So if you give me a topic, I can tell you about it. For example, Deepin, right? Deepin is absolutely going ballistic because people are driving around earning money by taking photos that replace the Google photos on Google Maps, and they're making money on it.
Are you talking about Hive Mapper? Is that built on Solana?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay.
I knew about Hive Mapper, but clearly not enough about Hive Mapper.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about another one. In America, I spoke to the people from Helium. So they want to come to Australia if we can find the directors or the CTOs of Optus, Vodafone. Telstra won't entertain us, right? But what they want to do is provide phone services that everyone in your house can end up being a phone provider. So you basically are the mobile phone provider, right? So if you look up Helium, and people are paying $5 a month for their internet on their phone.
Yeah.
right? And they're willing to come here as well. And that's an exciting project that's also deep in. And they actually present.
That's very excited. Please disrupt Telstra.
Right? Now let's talk about teleport, right? So Uber charges 40% out of the driver, right? If not more. Teleport already exists on Solana. They're looking for people to come on board and be the middleman. You get 5%, the driver gets 90%, and Teleport gets 5%, right? So you end up being the person that enables
They've
drivers.
reversed the model around.
Yeah, exactly. So they get rid of Uber, right? If you're an Uber driver, you automatically qualify in Australia if you want to be the person that's either the driver or the middleman that introduces more drivers, and you get 5% of the fees. Teleport gets 5%, the driver gets 90%, and you get 5%, right?
But they also need
Solana
people to
already.
be participating in the
These
ecosystem.
these are all only possible on Solana. That's 3, and I've spoken about it for 3 minutes. Right?
Good. Deepin is where, you know, we could probably go on and talk for hours, but I am mindful that we're almost at time, so we will wrap it up. I haven't checked the chat, but I will check the chat before we go and final off any closing questions. But there's so much to learn, and like Deepins, you know, is definitely a hot narrative at the moment. And these projects that you've listened to, I've actually been fortunate enough to already learn about them because I follow a podcast called Web3 Academy, and they talk about all the different, and they're big backers of Solana, and they talk about all the different projects, and they bring them on and they interview them. So I think that they're great just in general. And if you guys don't know what DPIN is, I think it stands for Decentralized Internet Network Infrastructure.
It stands for Decentralized Physical.
Infrastructure. I was close.
So basically, people would know it as Internet of Things, but you are connected to the blockchain, and the blockchain is obviously monetized. So it does the full circle, right? You've got internet, you've got money.
That's actually the best way of describing it. You just brought that in. I'm like, I'm going to start bringing in more deep in. I already have a couple of them in my lessons. But you know, as I said, we could continue and talk on about, you know, the future of Solana and regulation, and would there ever be an ETF, and, you know, how would regulation potentially impact the whole decentralized, you know, ecosystem in general, not just Solana, but all the projects that are based on Solana, and that how regulation could come in and not just affect Solana, but also other blockchains if they deem them as a security and don't have enough utility, right? Because that applies, that regulation would apply. It didn't matter if you were building on Solana or any other blockchain. But I think that would have to be a whole nother podcast. Or so I keep saying podcast, even though I don't do podcasts, another interview. But I'm just going to check the chat. I've just lost the chat, see if there's one last burning question. And it doesn't look like there is. Happy with Soul. Yes. Here's my last question.
Yep.
Let's bring this in. I knew that I had one last question, and thank you to Martin. I noticed, and this is pure speculation and opinion, I noticed that we had a nice little healthy correction or pullback in the market, right? Don't really care or not scared about that, but I noticed Solana went the other way. So Solana is pumping while everything else was dumping. And I just find that funny. And I would like to know, was there a particular event that, unless you're in the Solana ecosystem, you don't understand what made that kind of pump? Like, was there a whale that came in and then bought a whole bunch? Like, why was everything else dumping and Solana having a massive pump?
I mean, our there is no inside information that anyone has, because no one.
Sometimes you get it afterwards. You'll be like, oh, this event happened because this person did this thing, or
no. So look, Solana is not one person. It's not like, no person has this much power or this much money. Doesn't matter.
Oh, there's market makers that can move the market easy.
Yeah, sure, they can, right? So this is my prediction, right? Or actually, not my prediction, but this is what is going to be in the news next week. FTX, the settlement was $200. If you were going to settle with FTX to buy out their holdings, right? If you got it for less than 200, you were going to make money. If you pay more than 200, you were not going to make money. You were going to lose money, right? That's
Okay.
probably why. So you could have made, what was it, $192 if you were bidding for the FTX estate, if you got it a year ago, right? Today, you're going to make a loss on it. Right?
Yeah, that's what they're
probably,
giving back to the FTX holders. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like for example, there's one startup that it's called TipLink. We use them all the time. They have a percentage of their equity with FTX, right? Now they have a massive following, right? So you could have bought their equity by going via, the FTX estate at a discount, right? So that's probably it, right? And if it hasn't been in the news, like I don't follow that, but if that hasn't been in the news, that's probably going to be in the news tomorrow or one day, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much. To summarize it up, if people want to get in contact with you, learn more about, so we shared the link earlier. You've shared the Solana link. We've shared the Super Team Fund link for people to kind of go and learn more about if they want to get more actively involved in Solana. And if you're organizing or starting events, that's how I kind of built my whole career. Well, I started my studies, I started doing organizing events, and it's such a good way to network and build and grow. So if you're interested in events, reach out to them. But where's the best place for them to reach you? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Twitter? Is it something?
Yeah.
Something
So if you message me, so I'm available on everywhere as Metacell, except on Twitter, it's Metacell_, but everywhere. So Telegram is 1-to-1 for me, right? If you message me there. But if you want to ask a public question that others would benefit, like, hey, where's the next event in Brisbane? Or where's the next event? Then I can answer you publicly, then it gets the answer out to everyone, right? Like if you want to, like someone messaged me yesterday when I asked, can you work with us in Brisbane? Someone reached out on LinkedIn, I think, because they wanted to work with us in Auckland. So if you want to work with us anywhere, reach out publicly.
Any social?
Yeah, any social. My preference is Twitter because then I can, see what your presence is like and how much you can help. Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time tonight. I know it's a little bit later for you over in Melbourne. And thank you for everybody that joined the call and that asked questions and got involved. As always, feel free to connect with us in our real life events in Brisbane. We keep an eye out. There might be some more announcements with upcoming Solana events, local events, especially if you guys are in Melbourne. When's your next one in Melbourne?
10th of April.
10th of April. And is there one in Sydney as well? Have you
Sydney one is not to be confirmed. So maybe.
Good. So there's a couple that may be confirmed yet. So if tap into them and tap into the local community. And thank you everybody for joining us. And until next time.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
See you, Willow.
Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Phil.
Bye.
Bye, Martin.
I'm gonna
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.
stop recording, stop live stream.